Starting with US politics, this week's off-year election turned into a bloodbath for the Democrats. In a stunning upset, Republicans flipped the state of Virginia, which was considered safe blue. Meanwhile, the New Jersey race was so close it caused a panic across the entire party. The impact? Total humiliation for the experts and pollsters who said this was a sure thing. This wasn't just an election, it was a rebellion. Voters who are furious about the economy and the endless government shutdown used their only weapon. It's a screaming message to Washington. We are sick of the status quo. What's next? Absolute chaos. This result paralyzes the Democratic agenda. They now know they are extremely vulnerable. Expect them to either panic and try to pass anything to look competent, or more likely, for the internal blame game to begin. This tiny Virginia election just became the opening shot of the 2026 midterm war. Moving from politics to a massive climate disaster, the monster Typhoon Kalmaegi tore through the Philippines and Vietnam this week. This wasn't just a storm, it was a Category 5 killer. It has left hundreds dead, tens of thousands homeless, and entire coastal regions are just gone. The impact is total devastation. But here's the real story everyone is missing. This is the fifth once-in-a-generation storm in 3 years. The warning systems failed because the storm intensified too fast. This isn't a natural disaster anymore. It's the bill coming due for climate inaction. And as usual, the poorest are paying with their lives. What's next? More storms. The debate is over. This isn't about stopping climate change anymore. It's about surviving it. This disaster will force a brutal conversation about which coastal cities are worth saving and which poorer ones will be abandoned. This is the harsh economic reality of the new climate. Back to US politics. The government shutdown is no longer just an inconvenience. It's now a full-blown emergency. As the shutdown enters its 6th week, the funding for SNAP, the nation's food stamp program, has officially run out. As of this week, 42 million Americans are no longer receiving their food aid. The impact is immediate hunger. This isn't a political game anymore. It's a hostage situation where the hostages are the poorest people in the country. Food banks are already overwhelmed, reporting panic levels of demand. And the sickest irony? Congress is still getting paid while they argue over a budget that is literally taking food out of children's mouths. What's next? Chaos. With no solution in sight, pressure is exploding. This isn't just about SNAP. It's about TSA agents, air traffic controllers, and FBI agents also not getting paid. This shutdown is no longer just unpopular, it's becoming a national security risk. This is the exact kind of crisis that causes unpredictable social unrest. Next, a major disaster that just hit the global supply chain. A UPS cargo plane, an aging MD-11, crashed on its approach to Louisville, Kentucky, which is their main global hub. The crash tragically killed the crew and has paralyzed operations at one of the world's busiest cargo airports. The immediate impact is tragic, but the economic impact? We are weeks away from Black Friday. Amazon, UPS, and FedEx live on these aging cargo fleets. This crash exposes the critical fragility of the next-day shipping illusion we all take for granted. That system requires perfection, and this week it broke. What's next? Chaos. The FAA will likely ground all remaining MD-11s for inspection, just in time for the busiest shopping season on Earth. Expect massive shipping delays. Your Black Friday TV might just arrive in February. This forces all cargo companies to finally ask, is our obsession with cost-cutting making these old planes unsafe? And now, for the humanitarian crisis that the world is trying very hard to ignore. The UN is using its scariest words, catastrophic, massacre, and mass graves, to describe what is happening in Sudan's Darfur region. RSF forces have captured El Fasher and are reportedly conducting door-to-door executions. The impact is genocide, but the other impact? Silence. Complete silence. While the media spends 24 hours on US elections and video game trailers, GTA 6, this is happening. This is the definition of not safe for your timeline. It's the world's hypocrisy on full display, talking about human rights while actively ignoring this one. What's next? More silence. Without massive international pressure, these reports will just become statistics. The UN can warn all it wants, but warnings don't stop bullets. This is a total failure of diplomacy and a moral failure of the media. This crisis doesn't need thoughts and prayers. It needs intervention. And nobody is coming. Moving to the war in Ukraine, the strategy just dramatically changed. Ukrainian drones bypassed air defenses and successfully struck the Druzhba oil pipeline, one of the main arteries carrying Russian oil and cash to Europe. This isn't just a military target, this is a direct attack on Russia's wallet. The impact is panic in the oil markets, but the real impact is that Ukraine has finally taken the gloves off. For years, the West told them, "Don't hit targets inside Russia, you'll make Putin mad." Clearly, Kiev is done listening. They are now directly targeting the cash flow that funds the entire Russian war machine. What's next? Escalation. This proves Ukraine can hit Russia's most valuable assets at will. Putin now has a terrible choice: either admit his defenses are useless or double down. This dramatically increases the risk of Russia using a tactical nuclear weapon, not as a last resort, but just to change the subject. Moving to culture, or maybe economics. The most anticipated piece of entertainment on Earth, the Grand Theft Auto 6 trailer, leaked online just days before its official reveal. The entire internet stopped to watch it, forcing the publisher, Rockstar, to panic release the official one early. The impact was total internet meltdown. It instantly became the most viewed non-music video ever. But the business impact? Embarrassment. This is a multi-billion-dollar product launch, and their security was beaten by, probably, some kid. This leak completely ruined a decade's worth of marketing plans. What's next? Nothing. Absolutely nothing will change. Yes, there will be an internal investigation. Yes, someone will get fired. But the hype is so massive that this disaster is actually just free advertising. The game will still make all the money. It just proves that in 2025, hype is more powerful than security. Moving to the US Supreme Court, the justices just agreed to hear a massive case. Are the Section 232 tariffs? That's the legal weapon Trump used to hit China and Europe with national security taxes on steel, even legal. In short, the court is finally going to decide if a president can just invent a national security crisis to start a trade war. The impact is panic for companies that built their entire business model around these tariffs. For years, everyone just assumed these Trump tariffs were permanent. Now, maybe not. This throws decades of US trade policy into chaos. It's the ultimate legal "we told you so" to a president who used national security as a magic wand to bypass Congress. What's next? If the court actually strikes these tariffs down, it's a bomb. It means billions of dollars in tariffs collected illegally might have to be refunded. It guts the president's power to wage economic war alone. It's the ultimate check and balance, just 5 years too late. Moving to a health scandal we covered earlier this week, the Listeria outbreak is now worse. The death toll linked to contaminated pasta meals from supplier Nate's Fine Foods has risen, and the recall has expanded. The FDA has now shut down the supplier's facilities entirely, calling it a critical public health failure. The impact? The supplier, Nate's Fine Foods, has filed for bankruptcy, but the real impact is the shattering of trust. This wasn't one mistake. The FDA investigation found months of safety violations and ignored warnings. They knew the facility was dirty, and they shipped the food anyway. What's next? Nothing. This is the sick joke of the US food system. The company goes bankrupt, the CEO keeps his money, and a new company, probably run by the same people, will pop up next month. This isn't a failure of the system. This is the system. Expect zero real change and maybe check your pasta. And for our surprise story of the week, Dick Cheney is back. No, you didn't miss here. The former vice president is suddenly the #2 trend in America, thanks to a double whammy, a new Nuremberg movie referencing his legacy, and a brutal 60 minutes interview where he called Trump a fundamental threat to the republic. The impact is chaos inside the Republican Party. The old guard, the Bush-era conservatives, are making their last stand against Trump. Cheney's interview wasn't just an opinion, it was a declaration of war. He's trying to remind voters of a different kind of republicanism, but Let's be honest, most voters just see two dinosaurs fighting. What's next? More infighting. This Nuremberg reference wasn't an accident, it's heavy. Cheney is basically calling Trump's team criminals. This forces every Republican politician to choose a side: the past, Cheney, or the present, Trump. The result? A bloodier primary season and fantastic television. Moving to a massive economic scandal, Toyota just recalled 1.8 million vehicles, including popular models and their entire Lexus brand. The problem? A faulty sensor that might stop the passenger side airbag from deploying in a crash. Oh, and Subaru is recalling another 100,000 cars for the exact same stupid part. The impact is a nightmare for Toyota's reliability brand. This isn't just a small mistake. This is the one thing that must work. It shows that even Toyota, the king of quality, is cutting corners on critical safety parts to save a few pennies. The trust is gone. What's next? Billions in lawsuits and more recalls. This part was likely used in other brands too. This is the dark side of global supply chains. One cheap, faulty part from one supplier can infect millions of cars. Get ready for every car company to suddenly discover the same sensor problem next week. And finally, in scandal news, just after everyone's Halloween candy haul, both Mars and Nestle have issued a massive recall for popular candy bars, like Snickers and Kit Kats, due to, wait for it, contamination with small plastic particles. Yes, you heard that right. We're eating plastic. The impact is panic from millions of parents who just sent their kids trick-or-treating. But the real impact is the total joke that is quality control. How does plastic get into a sealed candy bar? This shows stunning negligence at the factory level. These are trillion-dollar companies that can't even keep plastic out of their food. What's next? Massive class action lawsuits. But the real next is that we finally normalize this. We're now living in a world where we have to check our candy for Listeria, last week's news, and plastic, this week's news. This is the new normal of a broken supply chain, where oops is the cost of doing business. The story never stops. We'll be here to analyze what's next.